So I think the message we have at United Nations Capital Development Fund is the following. Firstly, we are very grateful and very happy about the launch of the loss and damage facility, the loss and damage fund. This is a big step forwards because for a long time, some of the countries that are most affected by climate change have been arguing that there is no direct mechanism for them to deal with the loss and damage they are facing. One good example of this is Mozambique. So the number of tropical cyclones affecting Mozambique has changed significantly and measurably, and it correlates with the change in global temperatures. So we can see, as we are on track for increasing global temperatures, we can predict how many more cyclones Mozambique will receive. And actually our predictions have been correct. So through the Loss and Damage Fund, it will now be possible to support Mozambique to rebuild the houses and the infrastructure that is lost through these cyclones. I think it's very important that the Loss and Damage Fund is correlated directly with the actual effects of climate change. And I think we have the data to be able to do that. So that's one positive outcome. Well, the idea, yes, is that the fund will go to those countries that are suffering the most damage from the effects of climate change. And that is the plan, and we believe that plan will be followed because the fund will be managed by a board. And who will sit on that board are the countries. So there is regional representation. There will be some countries from the Gulf, some countries from Africa, some countries from Asia, from Latin America, North America, Europe, and there is a representation. And this board of nations will decide on how the fund will operate. But the principle of the fund is to enable those poor countries that are suffering direct effect of climate change to rebuild their infrastructure following these catastrophic events. So I think there's a big role of the private sector in a variety of different ways. Firstly, in terms of clean energy, the models are now there. We have a lot of good examples of solar, wind, water, and I think the private sector can support cities and also rural areas in rolling out these new models. So, for example, the leasing of solar panels is a really good way to provide clean energy. Also clean cooking solutions through liquid natural gas that is still burning fossil fuels, but is much better than chopping down trees. So we are working, for example, on the cook stoves together with the government of Tanzania and even with the OPEC fund. And here we are using these resources to promote clean cooking technologies that will use liquid natural gas across Africa, which will mean people do not need to chop down trees anymore for their cooking. So that is a good transition solution, and that will involve a lot of private sector operation. Another is the solar energy I referred to, and the wind. So there are a lot of ways the private sector can come in to support the green transition. So we at United Nations Capital Development Fund, we work in the least developed countries. There are 46 of those. And we have created a number of financial facilities to support the least developed countries handle both the adaptation and the mitigation of climate change. So I'll give you some examples. We've created a fund called the International Municipal Investment Fund. This is managed by Meridiam in Paris. It invests in the climate transition in cities. That is, I think, currently capitalized. I think there's around about $200 million in that fund. It's already investing. We are managing the pipeline. We have created a fund called the Global Fund for Coral Reefs. This is supporting private sector initiatives that can protect the coral reefs. That fund is capitalized. I haven't got the figure in my head, but that fund is now investing. The Local Climate Adaptive Living Facility that we'll be launching here with the 25 ministers have signed a declaration of support for this facility. That's 25 ministers, and this facility has already mobilized over $100 million for adaptation. And this facility enables local authorities like municipal governments and governorates to achieve direct access to the Green Climate Fund through their national accredited entities, and the resources go straight to the local level. So there are some numbers for you. I hope that's enough numbers for this interview.